Tzav of Likkutei Torah, Sefer Vayikra. We're learning a mimer about Pesach. Second column. The mimer begins with the pasuk Matzos, that you should eat matzos for 6 days, and on the 7th day is עצרת, is a special holiday of Shvishal Pesach. Mlaacha, don't do work on that day. Same pasuk that the previous mimer began with, and today we're going to learn this stuff. Will cover 2 maimarim, and so the maimer asks a question. The other atzeres, one of the other atzeres is the Shmini atzeres. There it says atzeres tilachem, it should be a yom tov for you, whereas here Shvishal Pesach it says it should be an atzeres l'Hashem Alikecha, yom tov for Hashem. Also, so why the difference, for you or for Hashem? Also, it says about Shvishal Pesach, don't do work, which is surprising because normally with Yom Tov it always qualifies that you're not allowed to do work except melacha aveda, but you are allowed to do work of melacha nefesh. You're allowed to do work that relates to eating. So why doesn't it specify with Shvishal Pesach as it does by other Yom Tovim melacha aveda, that only that type of work is prohibited? So let's first look at the Gemara in Pesachim, where there's a debate about what Yom Tov should be used for. So Rabbi Lezer says you have 2 choices, either Lashem or Lachem. Either you can use it for Hashem or for yourself. If you use it for Hashem, you spend the day davening and learning. And if it's for oneself, you spend the day eating and enjoying yourself. So Rabbi Lezer says make that choice. Rabbi Yeshua says no. It should be half for Hashem and half for yourselves. And this is based on the 2 psukim. On one hand, it says Atzeres l'Hashem Alikecha. On the other hand, it says Atzeres lachem. That it should be an Atzeres for you. So Rabbi Lezer says you have to pick which one, and Rabbi Yeshua says that you have to have a bit of both, a bit for yourself and a bit for Hashem. But still, why does the pasuk choose Shvishal Pesach to say l'Hashem Alikecha, that it should be for Hashem, and Shmini Atzeres, that's what it says Tilachem, it should be for you? It implies that Shvishal Pesach is more related to l'Hashem Alikecha. So based on this, based on the fact that Shvishal Pesach is more related to Hashem, we can also explain why it says don't work, and it doesn't qualify that we're only talking about melacha aveda, but not work related to food. Because if you spend Shvishal Pesach all for Hashem, as the Torah implies, that the spending the day on Hashem is the preference for Shvishal Pesach. So if so, then you wouldn't be eating. And if someone fasts on, let's say someone fasts because of the tainus chalom, he has a dream, a bad dream, which allows and actually requires one to fast even on Yom Tov. So then the Magen Avraham says that if someone's fasting, then he's not allowed to cook on Yom Tov, because since he doesn't need to eat, his fasting, so he can't cook or do melacha, even work related to food on Yom Tov. And that's why the Torah says don't do work, to include any work in a case of a person who's not eating. Now, the main joy of Yom Tov is actually rejoicing with Hashem, like it says, V'yismachu v'cha Yisrael, that the Jewish people will rejoice in you rather than in the food. Although we rejoice in Hashem and with Hashem the whole year, but on Yom Tov, because there is an extra stress, an extra mitzvah on of simcha, of joy on Yom Tov, so therefore rejoicing with Hashem is especially so on Yom Tov. Now, in general, every mitzvah that we do, it adds extra godly light, but that godly light originally it is only in the higher worlds, in Atzilus. That's where the impact of our mitzvah, the godly light that is revealed through our mitzvah, that's where it's manifest. Now, the nefesh alikis, our godly soul, comes from the pnimis hakelim, from the inner kelim, the inner vessels of Atzilus, but still we don't sense this revelation inside our own soul, although our soul comes from very high source. is because although yes, our soul, our nefesh elokis, our godly soul comes from a high source, from pnimis hakelim, in a kelim of biyah, which that comes from the kelim of atzilus. Yes, it comes from the very high source, but it is coveted over by the nefesh bahamis, by the animal soul, which doesn't allow it to take in this godly revelation. This is the meaning of the pasuk, that he's standing behind the wall, that there's this great godly revelation, but it's blocked by a wall because of our nefesh bahamis, our animal soul, covering it. However, on Yom Tov, there's added light, added revelation, and this polishes the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, to allow it to let in godly light and not block it. And therefore the pasuk says that yes, this light of Hashem is standing behind a wall, but it's mashgiach min achleinos, it's peeking through the windows. And that's what makes Yom Tov a happy time, because happiness is connected with expression and revelation. So when Hashem's light's able to come through, then therefore it's a happy time. And therefore they brought shalmei simcha, special karbanos of joy, which the meat excited the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, which normally covers over the spark of godliness inside us and stops us from having full simcha, through full rejoicing with Hashem. But then when they brought the parts of the animal, parts of the fats and the blood that was burnt on the mizbeach, so then the animal goes up and is included in the goes back to its source, which is this Pnei Shor on the Merkava, the holy chariot. In the vision of Yecheskel, there's animals, the lion and the ox, the eagle. So the animal goes up to that spiritual source, and therefore the nefesh bahamis becomes not an opposition, but allows Hashem's light through, especially when we eat the meat of the carbon, because part of the carbon shlam was eaten by the owners, and then that becomes that meat becomes the medium so that we can work with the nefesh bahamis, with the animal soul. Because when a person eats, so in general, the person is medaber, which is higher than his food. His food comes from inanimate vegetation and animals. But when the person eats, yes, he elevates the food, but the food also elevates him to the source of the food, because it comes from a very high source in the world of Toyo. Like we've explained in previous Maimarim, that although the food and everything of the physical world descended, it fell down through shiras hakelim, through the breaking of the vessels, and it fell all the way down into the physical world. But when we bring it back to its source and reveal its holiness, so then that elevates the person as well, and therefore allows him to rejoice with Hashem. That's why the carbon is called shalomim, which comes, it has several meanings. It means shalom, it means the peace offering, like the Medrash explains on Ulazevach HaShlomim, on the carbon shalomim that was brought by the tribe of Yisachar, the leader of Yisachar, when the Mishkan was inaugurated. Shlomim also comes from the word completion, like is explained in the Medrash about the Zevach HaShlomim, the Shlomim offering that the tribe of Yehuda, Nachshon, brought for the inauguration of the Mishkan. And it also talks there about two shlomos, two peace, and this is that there's both peace above and peace below. So below the peace is that the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, and the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, are working together. The animal soul doesn't block the godly revelation from the godly soul. And that causes joy in Hashem, that the animals over the page, that the animal soul should also rejoice in Hashem. Now it says that when Mashiach comes, we'll eat sharabar. And this word sharabar, it comes from Simply, bar means wild, like sure, bar, a wild, like non-domesticated ox. But bar also comes from the word pure, and so this that from bar levav, that a purified heart that will have when Mashiach comes. And similarly, shalmei simcha, the word shalom, to be complete, also implies that that we've already purified our whole being, including our nefesh habahamis, our animal soul. And the shalah connects shlomim to the statement of Gemara Pesachim that that only when Mashiach comes will Hashem's name be complete and His throne be complete. So that's the idea of the carbon shlomim, the shalmei simcha that we bring at each Yom Tov base. Now, it says that that in Olam Haba, though there's no eating or drinking. Now, what does Olam Haba mean? The Rambam says that it refers to Gan Eden, where there's only souls without bodies, whereas the Ramban responds that if so, then of course there's no eating. Rather, when it says Olam Haba, the world to come, it means the world as it will be after Tchias HaMesim, after the resurrection of the dead, will still be inside a body, but we won't need to eat, because we'll be energized from spiritual sources. Now, eating and drinking both have their spiritual counterparts. That eating is chachma and bina. From the chachma and bina, from the spiritual understanding and wisdom and understandings, that sort of fills us, and drinking is from the 7 midas. So Hashem himself is beyond any limitation and any definition, and therefore you wouldn't have specific spheres from Hashem himself. That's already a descent, and even if you have spheres, they would be unlimited, and therefore Hashem's rachamim, Hashem's mercy is unlimited, and therefore it would be everywhere, and it would be merciful on everyone, even those who don't deserve it. And therefore, there's a descent coming down into limits, and that's the idea of eating, which is bringing it down, and drinking is even bringing it down further still, because drinking is with liquid, and the water, the quality of water is to descend. Water always finds a way down. So, and therefore, when Chacham Bina is eating, is bringing down from beyond his shalshalus into his shalshalus, from beyond the chain of worlds into the chain of worlds, into Chacham and Bina. And then drinking brings down Hashem's light even further to the 7 midas. So now on Shvi Shel Pesach, we're beyond eating. What is it? Why? Because Shvi Shel Pesach commemorates Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and at that time there was this ripping open and or covering and concealment, so that even a simple maidservant could see more godliness and at the sea than the greatest of prophets could see at other times. Now, where do we see this in the Torah? Although the Gemara says this, and Medrashim talk about this, where do we see it in the Torah itself? By Matan Torah, by the giving of the Torah, for example, it says clearly in the Torah, Panim, Befanim, Diber, that Hashem spoke face to face. But what does it say about Shvi Shel Pesach that hints on the great godly revelation? So there are a few hints. The pasuk says, "Ma titzak elai," why are you crying out to me? And it says, "Vatem tachrish," and you be quiet, which implies that this is a time which is beyond speech, beyond anything that we could say. So speech at most reaches to chachma, that we can, the choice of words and even the ability to speak comes from chachma ultimately, like it's explained elsewhere, how the bringing out the sounds, which is in Malchus, but its source is in Chachma. And it says that a chacham, that a wise person, doesn't speak before someone who's greater than him. For example, in front of a king, everyone is quiet, and that's because the wise person would want to receive from someone greater than him rather than to speak, and therefore is quiet. So because at Kriyas Yamsuf there was a great revelation of Hashem beyond Chachma, therefore it says that you be quiet, that we're trying to receive this godly revelation, and therefore we don't speak. We want to focus on on receiving, not giving over. That's also why in Shemona Esrei, which is something similar, at least a trace of Kriyas Yamsuf, so we're also quiet, because we're just trying to, with bittul and with humility, just take in this revelation from Hashem. That's also why it doesn't say that the Hebrew is not that bekia sayam, slicing through, splitting the sea, but hafach yam liabasha, transforming sea into dry land. Why? Because sea, yam, represents mashpia. The high level, which it's the idea of a sea, is that you can't see in, and that's because it's a little beyond us, and that's the level which is mashpia, which gives over. Then yabasha, dry land, earth, is the makabels, the receiver. And this is also practically that the sea provides water for the and moisture for the earth to be able to grow things. And like we see that all the rivers go to the sea, like Chazal say, but still, despite that, the sea doesn't overflow, because the water of the sea goes back and provides some water and moisture back to the earth and to the rivers, and that's why the rivers don't dry out. And also clouds receive water from the ocean, which then is used to give water to rain onto the earth. So when Hashem revealed himself at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, of the splitting of the sea, so then the sea turned to dry land, and there became these walls of the water, and they were like solid. And the revelation was so intense. It was for everyone was taking in, was seeing more godly revelation than even Yecheskel, the great prophet, could see at other times, because Yecheskel, he saw different levels of godliness, but there's division. There's the Pnei Aryeh, the face of the lion, and the Pnei Shor, the face of the ox, and the Merkava in the holy chariot. Whereas at the splitting of the sea, there was godly revelation beyond division. It's like we said, that the water all turned hard. It was like frozen, and like all one thing. When water is frozen, it represents that it's all coming together. It's becoming unified. And that's why in the vision of the Merkava, it says that Yecheskel says, I saw Ein HaKerach, something like snow. This is also the meaning of what it says about Kriyas Yamsuf. It says that there was Vayi'onon v'cheshech, there was the cloud and darkness, Vayar, and it shone. What shone? The Maimer explains the darkness shone, meaning the darkness is called darkness because it's beyond us. We can't normally take it in, we can't normally relate to it, but then this level of godliness from beyond, at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, that shone, that became revealed to us. From the time of creation, Hashem separated between the light and the darkness. And the purpose was because the light that would be too powerful for the world to exist with a separate identity and as a separate existence, that was put aside, and that became the darkness. And only on the first day of creation did you have light and dark together. But then on Kriyas Yamsuf, the darkness again shone. This is the meaning of the pasuk Yashes Chayshech Sisrei, that the darkness which is really even a more powerful light than the regular light, normally stays with Hashem, but at Kriyas Yamsuf it shone. And so this is also the meaning of the pasuk that is explained elsewhere in Likkutei Torah. I am black and beautiful. The idea of black represents concealment, but not because it doesn't have any light, but on the contrary, it's even more powerful light, but it's beyond what we can normally take in. And that's also the meaning of the white fire and the black fire. Therefore, on Shvi Pesach, because it's such a high level from totally beyond, so therefore they didn't bring a Shalmei Simcha, because yes, Shalmei Simcha, this carbon is very beautiful, but on Shvi Pesach, we're at a level even beyond that, which can't come down and it can't be internalized. The idea of eating represents internalizing that level. But on Shvi Pesach, the godly revelation is beyond, and we can't internalize it. It stays makif, it stays surrounding us. And therefore it says, Shom Nismacha, that only then we'll be able to rejoice. In other words, only with Mashiach. And that's also the meaning of what Chazal say, that that in the world to come, there's no eating, because there'll be such a powerful revelation from beyond his shalshas, from beyond the chain of worlds, and therefore there won't be able to be eating. We won't be able to take it in an internalized way. It will only stay makiv, it will stay surrounding us. And so the response, the impact on Bnei Yisrael was, on the Jewish people, it says of Bnei Yisrael that the Jewish people were going on the dry land inside the sea. Now, in Gemara, there's a debate, what came first, heaven or earth? And really both are true, because practically heaven came first, but in potential and thought, earth came first. So at the time of Kriyas Yam Suf, that potential was revealed, how earth is really first, really from a high level. And therefore they walked on dry land inside the sea. That's the dry land, which is beyond the heavens, where you could have the sea and dry land together, a great godly revelation within this world. And what allows them to come together, sea and dry land, which are opposites, it's because when there's a revelation of Ein Sof, then opposites can come together. Okay, so this is the end of this mimer, but we're going to also learn now another short mimer to complete the daf. But what do we have from here? We have that the reason why Shvi Pesach is called the עצרת L'Hashem is because the greatest revelation of the year is Shvi Pesach. That's when the sea, which is normally concealed and beyond us, is ripped open and actually transformed to dry land. That the what's normally beyond us now we're able to take in. But still, since it's something so powerful, we don't take it in an internalized way, and therefore there's no eating, because eating represents when we internalize something. And this level, yes, it's a very powerful spiritual level, but actually because it's so powerful, we can't take it in, and that's like Olam Haba, where there's no eating. Next mimer begins again with the same pasuk, that for 6 days you shall eat Matzos, and on the 7th day will be a Yom Tov for Hashem. Don't do work. Now there are 3 Yom Tovim called עצרת. So the Shvi Pesach, Shavuos, and Shmini Atzeres. But there's a difference between them. With Shvi Pesach, it says that it's an Atzeres L'Hashem Leikecha, it's an Atzeres, a Yom Tov for Hashem your God, whereas Shavuos and Shmini Atzeres are called Atzeres Tia Lachem, it's an Atzeres for you. And because Shvi Pesach, it says that it's for Hashem, it implies it's not like how the Yom Tovim, where Rabbi Yeshua says it should be half for Hashem and half for you, but rather with Shvi Pesach, it's especially connected to La Hashem, for Hashem. And Shvi Pesach is the day of Kriyas Yam Suf, there's a splitting of the sea. At the splitting of the sea, there was great godly revelation, but also a great degree of refinement of the physical world that was possible. And that's because it says that the Jewish people received more spoils from Egypt at the sea than they received the entire time that they received from the plagues and from Makas B'chayos. So when they received these spoils, it was an opportunity to elevate this physical property to Hashem. And it also says that even a maidservant saw more at the sea than the prophets, the greatest of the prophets, saw at other times. This is like the metaphor of or the parable of a parent who lifts up a child to see further, or like the pasuk says, that Hashem takes us on His arms, He lifts us up, and then we're able to see more. Now, in the song that the Jewish people sang at the time of Kriyas Yam Suf in Oz Yashir, it says Ad Yavar Hashem Ad Yavar, it says until you pass, and it says twice until you pass. So we have two times where we pass through water. The first time is Kriyas Yam Suf, and then the second time with Mashiach, where it says that the rivers will split. The river will split into 7 canals, and we'll be able to walk through in our shoes. And then, and 2 seconds later, the beginning of Perek Beis of Yeshaya continues with Hashem ki anafta bi. Thank you, Hashem, for being angry at me. Yashav Abchav Usnachmeni, let your wrath turn away and may you comfort me. And then continues with that and the flows like when we left Egypt. Hashem says that I will show you miracles. So when we cross the sea, the Yam Suf, that's the bottom level, the Suf, the Seifa, the Chol Dargin. So when Mashiach comes, we'll cross the river, which is the highest of all levels, representing the Eva Hanar beyond the river. The first mention of river in the Torah is the river coming out of Eden. So Eden represents Chachma, the Chachma Vatzilus, the highest level of godly wisdom, and then Eden is the Nar, the river's Bina, which comes out of that Chachma. So the difference between Chachma and Bina are both intellectual spheres, but the difference is Chachma is when you see the concept. Bina is where you understand the concept. So Bina is where you understand the detail. That's like hearing. Whereas when you see, you just get the whole point without detail. That's Chachma. Now, the Yam Suf was split into 12 parts for the 12 tribes. And every tribe has its own style of understanding of Hashem and what inspires them. Whereas when Mashiach comes, the river will be split into 7, and that corresponds to the 7 shepherds, the Zayin Roim, and corresponds to the 3 Aves and 4 Amos, the 3 fathers and 4 matriarchs of the Jewish people. And that's also the idea of the 7 branches of the menorah, and also the idea of what the pasuk says that the sun will be the sun will be like 7 times as bright as the moon. The moon will become as bright as the sun now, and then the sun 7 times as bright as that, like the light of the 7 original days of creation. So this 7 is connected to the 7 parts of the River of Mashiach. So nowadays, beyond the river is beyond us. But when Mashiach comes, then Arena Niflois, then Hashem will show us wonders. And it won't be that He'll tell us about wonders that we'll hear. So implying hearing will be He'll show us, meaning that we'll see wonders. And then we'll understand, and we'll be able to thank Hashem for His anger at us, for punishing us, and for all the difficulties during exile, of the difficulties of Parnasa and other difficulties, because through the difficulties and through the poverty, so we're able to reach a higher level and to surpass the river, to get Eva Nara beyond the river. Now, this is also the idea of eating matzah for 6 days, and then comes Shvisha Pesach. It doesn't say matzah for 7 days, because the 6 days are, yes, 6 days where we have to eat matzah, and that helps us elevate spiritually. But the 7th day is beyond eating. That's the Eva Nar, beyond the river, where there's no eating, and therefore we don't even mention eating matzah, which matzah is lechem, the bread of poverty, and then we'll be beyond that. We'll be beyond all challenges. And that's why it says don't work. It doesn't say don't do melacha avoda, because it's trying to include eat and don't even cook, because if you're not eating, then you're not allowed to cook either on Yom Tov. And Shvi Pesach is the day beyond eating, which will be fully revealed with Mashiach, which was also beyond eating. Yes, in the earlier days of Pesach, there was already a revelation of Mochen de Gadlus, of this expanded mind, expanded consciousness, and especially in Shvi Pesach, very great revelation. But still, in order to really take it in and internalize it, we need Sfiras Ha'omer, where we work on refining ourselves in one midah each night. Like, for example, let's say someone gives someone a gift of a lot of money. So then first the person sees the whole gift and wow, thanks so much. Then he counts each gold piece individually to see exactly what it is. So in a similar way, so we first have Pesach, which is this great revelation, and then Sfiras Ha'omer, we slowly, bit by bit, work on internalizing it. So this second Maimah, shorter Maimah, says that Shvi Pesach is different to the other days, which are called Atzeres, because this one is for Hashem. It's the greatest revelation of Hashem. It says that, and this will be the splitting of the river, which is beyond the splitting of the sea. The splitting of the river is the top of the levels, Keser, whereas the splitting of the river is the bottom of the sea, is the bottom of levels, is Malchus. And then we'll be able to thank Hashem for our difficulties in between. And we'll be granted this idea of Re'iyah, of seeing Hashem, not just hearing and understanding about Hashem. And that is connected with 7, whereas the understanding the parameters is connected to 12. And because Shvi Pesach is this level beyond, this Mashiachtic level beyond eating, so therefore the Torah only talks about eating for 6 days, not the 7th day, because the 7th day is really, it's beyond eating. And that's why really we shouldn't be doing any work, because if you're not eating, then you can't cook either. But although Pesach brings us to such high level, it's not internalized. And then with Sfiras Ha'omer, to some degree, we internalize all of this by working on one midah each day.